let's talk about one of the most important figures in all of history, the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. For almost 1,700 years, the world has been wrestling with one single, massive question about this guy. Okay, so this is the heart of it, right here. This question. It's not just about one man's personal beliefs. It's really about whether the world we all live in today was shaped by a genuine moment of divine inspiration or by one of the most brilliant and maybe cynical political moves ever made. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into. Now, before we can even get to Constantine, you have to understand the world he was born into. And let me tell you, the late Roman Empire was not the gleaming superpower you might be picturing. It was, frankly, a total mess, torn apart by decades of brutal civil war. There was a system meant to fix it called the Tetrarchy, basically ruled by 4 emperors. But instead of creating stability, it just created more rivals and a whole lot more bloodshed.
You can just see the chaos laid out on this timeline. In this period, power wasn't passed down peacefully. You took it, usually by force. The Tetrarchy, this 4-emperor system, was supposed to be the solution, but really it was just a ticking time bomb. The moment Diocletian stepped down, the whole thing exploded into a complete free-for-all. So by 312, Constantine isn't the emperor. He's just one of several power-hungry generals, all claiming the title.
And this brings us to the moment where literally everything changes. We're on the eve of one of history's most critical battles, right outside the walls of Rome itself. So, Constantine is making this huge, massive gamble. He crosses the Alps, marches his army on the heart of the empire to take on his rival, Maxentius. And here's the kicker. By all accounts, he's seriously outnumbered. If he loses this fight, it's not just a setback. It's the end of his career, and almost certainly the end of his life. And then, according to the story, he sees it. A vision, right there in the sky. A cross of light, glowing above the sun. And with it, these words. It's a promise of victory, but it's coming from a new, totally unexpected source. The God of the Christians. This is the symbol he supposedly saw, the Chi Rho. It's formed from the first 2 letters of Christ's name in Greek. So acting on this vision, Constantine orders his soldiers, and remember, most of these guys are pagans, to paint this bizarre new symbol on their shields. Just imagine being one of those soldiers for a second. You're outnumbered, you're about to fight for your life, and your general tells you to put your trust in a sign from a persecuted minority religion. Talk about a leap of faith.
And he wins. I mean, he absolutely crushes him. Maxentius is defeated, his army is smashed to pieces, and he actually drowns in the Tiber River trying to escape. In a single afternoon, Constantine becomes the undisputed master of the Western Roman Empire, and in his mind, he owes it all to the Christian God. This is the moment that sets up our whole investigation.
So was this a genuine miracle, a true conversion of the heart, or was it something else entirely? Let's start looking at the evidence, beginning with the 2 very different historical accounts of what went down. I mean, you couldn't get 2 more different stories. On one hand, you've got the Christian writer Lactantius, who tells this epic tale of divine intervention, a dream from God promising victory. But then you have the pagan historian Zosimus, who gives a much, much darker take. He says Constantine didn't need a new god for victory. He needed a god who would forgive him for executing his own wife and son, something the traditional Roman gods just wouldn't do. So was it an act of faith, or was he just looking for a divine loophole?
And, there's a huge political angle here we just can't ignore. Look at these numbers. By the year 300, Christians were not some tiny fringe cult anymore. They made up over 10% of the empire's population, and maybe more importantly, they were super organized, tight-knit, and growing like wildfire. Now, if you're a guy trying to consolidate power, that's not a group you want to fight. That's a potential power base.
Honestly, the case for Strategist is pretty compelling when you look at what he actually did. For years, he played both sides. He kept his official title as Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of the pagan religion. For years after his conversion, his coins still had images of the Roman sun god, Sol Invictus. Even the massive arch he built in Rome to celebrate his victory has 0 Christian symbols on it. And maybe the biggest tell of all, he waited until he was literally on his deathbed to get baptized. That doesn't exactly scream true believer, does it? It looks more like a man hedging his bets. Okay, but hold on. You can't just write it off as pure politics, because the things he did were absolutely revolutionary. Almost immediately after his victory, he co-authors the Edict of Milan, officially ending all persecution of Christians. Then he starts pouring imperial money into building these magnificent churches and gives Christian clergy special legal status and tax breaks. He didn't just tolerate Christianity, he went on record, publicly, saying his reign was a divine mission from the Christian God. This was a complete 180 from every emperor who came before him. So maybe this is where the two ideas, saint and strategist, start to merge. Because whether he was a devout believer or a brilliant politician, Constantine quickly figured something out. A fractured empire with hundreds of different gods was messy and hard to rule. But an empire united under one god, well, that could be the perfect ideological glue to hold his newly unified state together.
Right, but there was one massive problem. The church itself wasn't unified at all. In fact, it was a hotbed of fiery theological arguments and really bitter divisions. So if Christianity was going to be his glue, he first had to stop the church from falling apart.
And this was the biggest fight of them all, the Arian controversy. Now, it sounds really abstract, but this question about the divine nature of Jesus Christ was literally tearing the church in two. Was Jesus the Son equal to God the Father, or was he a lesser created being? For Constantine, this wasn't just some theological squabble. It was a political crisis that was threatening the stability of his brand new favorite religion.
Constantine's solution here was pure political genius. Step 1. He calls together bishops from all across the empire for the first ever universal council in a city called Nicaea. Step 2. He shows up and personally presides over the whole thing, pushing them to settle the debate once and for all. Step 3, the result is the Nicene Creed, a statement of faith that's still used today, which declared the Son is equal to the Father. And here's the kicker. Step 4, he makes the creed the law of the land. For the very first time in history, Christian doctrine became state policy. Church and state were now linked. But wait, because here's the final, incredible twist. After spending years enforcing the creed that condemned Arianism, Constantine himself was baptized on his deathbed by an Arian bishop. It's just a shocking turn of events that shows you how complicated and personal this whole debate really was, even for the emperor who tried to end it.
So, what's the final verdict? Saint? Strategist? Maybe the real answer is that he was both. But whatever his private motives were, his actions undeniably, fundamentally reshaped the entire world.
I mean, the scale of his legacy is just staggering. He didn't just end the civil wars, he put the whole Roman Empire back together under one ruler. He didn't just rule from Rome, he founded a new Rome, Constantinople, shifting the empire's focus to the east for the next 1,000 years. And of course, the big one, he took a persecuted faith from the margins of society and put it on the path to becoming the dominant religion of the entire Western world. He created the very idea of a Christian empire, this fusion of church and state that would define Europe for centuries.
It's really hard to argue with the simple, blunt assessment from historian David Potter. The man changed the world, period. The changes he kicked off were so massive and so permanent that without him, our history would be completely unrecognizable. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Take away that one moment, that supposed vision in the sky before one single battle. Does any of this happen? Was one man's decision, whether it was driven by deep faith or by cold strategy, the one single event that turned a small Middle Eastern religion into a global superpower? That, right there, is the incredible legacy of Constantine.